The Portrait of Shadows. In the heart of the bustling city of Bracton, there stood an art gallery known for its eclectic collection of paintings from different eras. Among the many artworks, there was one room that visitors often overlooked, not because it was unremarkable, but because of the eerie presence it held. This room housed a single painting, known simply as the Portrait of Shadows. The painting was a masterpiece of the 18th century, depicting a somber, pale woman dressed in black, standing in a moonlit forest. Her eyes, dark and piercing, seemed to follow you no matter where you stood. Legend had it that the painting was enchanted, though few believed it, dismissing the tales as mere superstition. One rainy evening, as the gallery was closing, an art student named Claire found herself drawn to this very painting. Claire had always been fascinated by the supernatural and the macabre, and the rumors surrounding the Portrait of Shadows intrigued her. As she stood before it, she felt a strange pull, as if the woman in the painting was calling to her. The gallery director, Mr. Whitman, noticed Claire's fascination and approached her. "Ah, the Portrait of Shadows. Quite a piece, isn't it?" he said, his voice low and tinged with a hint of warning. "There's a story behind that painting. Are you interested in hearing it?" Claire nodded eagerly, her curiosity piqued. Many years ago, the artist, Vincent Moreland, painted this portrait of his beloved Eleanor. They say she was accused of witchcraft and executed in that very forest. Stricken with grief, Vincent spent months trying to capture her essence on canvas. When he finished, he claimed that Eleanor's spirit had entered the painting. Soon after, he went mad and disappeared without a trace. Claire's eyes widened as Mr. Whitman continued. They say that those who spend too long staring at the painting can feel Eleanor's presence. Some even claim to hear her whispers. Intrigued and undeterred by the warnings, Claire decided to stay behind after the gallery closed. She hid in one of the side rooms, waiting for the building to empty. As the last of the staff left and silence settled over the gallery, Claire emerged and made her way back to the Portrait of Shadows. She stood before the painting, its eerie beauty holding her in a trance. Hours passed, and Claire began to feel a chill in the air. The temperature in the room dropped, and she swore she could hear faint whispers, like the rustling of leaves. Ignoring her growing unease, she reached out to touch the frame. The moment her fingers brushed the wood, the room was plunged into darkness. Claire's heart raced as she fumbled for her phone to use its flashlight, but it wouldn't turn on. Panic set in, but before she could move, a soft, melodic voice filled the room. "Claire." She froze. The voice was coming from the painting. "Claire, help me." Against her better judgment, Claire stepped closer. The woman in the painting seemed to have shifted slightly, her eyes now filled with desperation. "Set me free," the voice whispered. Claire felt a strange compulsion to obey. She reached out again, and this time, her hand passed through the frame as if the painting were a window. A cold, invisible hand grasped hers, pulling her forward. She struggled, but the pull was too strong, and she was yanked into the painting. Inside, the forest was dark and oppressive. The moon cast an eerie glow, and shadows danced among the trees. Claire looked around in fear and saw Eleanor standing before her, just as she appeared in the painting, but more real, more terrifying. "You must take my place," Eleanor said, her voice no longer soft but commanding and filled with malice. Before Claire could react, she felt herself being pushed toward a gnarled tree. The branches wrapped around her, holding her in place. Eleanor stepped back, and Claire felt her body stiffen, her skin hardening like canvas. She screamed, but no sound came out. In the gallery, the painting had changed. Now, instead of Eleanor, it was Claire who stood in the moonlit forest, her eyes wide with terror, her mouth open in a silent scream. Days turned into weeks, and visitors to the gallery noticed the new figure in the portrait of shadows. Mr. Whitman, sensing something was amiss, tried to have the painting removed, but every attempt failed. The painting seemed rooted to the spot, and anyone who tried to move it was overcome with a sudden, paralyzing fear. One evening, as Mr. Whitman was closing up, he heard a whisper, "Help me." He turned to see Claire's desperate eyes staring back at him from the painting. The realization hit him like a punch to the gut. He had to find a way to break the curse. Mr. Whitman spent countless nights researching, delving into old texts and legends. He discovered that the only way to free Claire was to find and destroy the original artist's brushes, the tools Vincent Moreland had used to create the cursed painting. They were rumored to be hidden in the same forest depicted in the artwork. Gathering his courage, Mr. Whitman set out for the forest one moonlit night, guided by the whispers that seemed to emanate from the painting itself. The forest was real, just as it appeared in the painting, and it wasn't long before he found a small, overgrown cabin. Inside, the air was thick with the scent of decay. Mr. Whitman searched until he found a set of old, worn brushes hidden beneath the floorboards. As he touched them, a chill ran through him, and the air seemed to hum with energy. He returned to the gallery, brushes in hand, and stood before the painting. Claire's eyes followed his every move, pleading silently. With a deep breath, he snapped the brushes in half. The effect was immediate. The painting shimmered, and a gust of cold wind filled the room. Claire stumbled out of the frame, gasping for breath, free at last. The painting reverted to its original state, with Eleanor's somber figure standing alone in the forest. Mr. Whitman and Claire destroyed the remains of the brushes, ensuring that the curse would never trap another soul. They covered the painting with a heavy cloth and eventually had it sealed away, hidden where no one would ever find it. The gallery moved on, and the legend of the portrait of shadows faded into memory. Claire, forever changed by her ordeal, left Bracton, never to return. But she would always carry the scars of her experience, a reminder of the darkness that lurked within the beautiful, eerie painting. In the forgotten corners of the world, where shadows and light play tricks on the mind, the portrait of shadows remains a silent witness to the terror of enchanted paintings and the souls they ensnare.